Good morning. This is our Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee meeting for Thursday, December 12th. And we have 4 legislators in chambers, and we have 1 who's excused. We have a pile of minutes to approve. We have 10 of them. What's your pleasure?
I'll move them all at one time.
All right. Is there a second? Does anyone have any corrections or changes to any or all of them? Not hearing any complaints. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. That was quick. Changes to the agenda. I see we have a revised resolution, changes in various departments. And I got an email on this. What was it? Just the signature needed to be added or something? Was this the one?
I don't think so.
Oh, that might have been a different department. Sorry. I think the we'll take that up when we get to it, but there are changes in yellow. Are there any comments from the public this morning? See our distinguished county attorney is on Zoom with us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Maury. I don't hear any comments from the public, so let's move to the county administrator's report. Lisa.
Good morning. My report is brief. It's just an update on we're in the midst of 2 searches in our department, one for budget director and the other for communications director. We're just getting started on the communications director piece. We've had 27 applicants.
27?
27. And I actually looked back, the last time we did this search, we had 27 applicants. So we're pretty consistent.
Lisa, the communications director position is so important for the legislature. I realize that under the previous county administrator, the role of the communications director changed a lot. But have we, in the selection here, how is the legislature involved?
Amanda Champion, as chair of GO, is on the interview panel.
Okay.
And when we get down to the finalists, we could make arrangements for a legislature meet and greet if that's something that you would like to see. We're getting into the holidays. That's the challenging part of it, and so we're.
Well, just cancel. Yes, of course, you're exactly right. But I do think it's so important. The original position of public information officer was created by the legislature and was very much involved with publication of legislative activities. Particularly during the pandemic, it became so important for like the health department and other departments to have a lot of public contact, press releases, et cetera, and Dominic had done a wonderful job for us in that role. But I think it's real important that we not lose track of the importance of the legislature, the committee meetings, and all of that.
Yeah. I will say that since the pandemic and since the advent of the Zoom meetings and the streaming, that all of the committee proceedings are now streamed and available on YouTube, which is a change from previous.
And that's true, but it doesn't have the impact of a report about that goes out, at least in my opinion. But you're exactly right. All right, anything else, Lisa?
Those were my updates. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa? Let's go to Lori.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Our Director of Finance.
Yes, so a quick update. We have started the year-end audit already, and the auditors will be on site to start their preliminary work all of next week. And we have also scheduled the IDA and the task audits for the last week of January. I also wanted to let you know we had our first fiscal group meeting on December 2nd. We had approximately 40 attendees from the departments across the county, and we went over year-end procedures and deadlines.
And that was how many departments?
I don't know how many departments, but all departments were invited. We had 40 attendees.
That's wonderful. So that's one of the things I'd ask you to tell us about.
Yep.
And this is part of our effort to get to a point where we can better understand fund balance earlier in the year. And all the hurdles that you've explained to us that we've got to go over, and you talked about a last meeting about different procedures and how we can eventually get to where we need to be. But it won't happen overnight. We know that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I wondered about the airport facilities charges audit. Is that being done at the same time, or was that done before?
That was done in, I want to say, October, maybe November.
Okay. So it's going to be,
You should
it's
have
already done then?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, for a long time, we didn't realize we were supposed to do that.
Oh,
Before you.
okay. I don't remember if Roxanne came and presented it or not. And we could certainly,
what?
did Roxanne come and present it? I don't remember if she brought that
I don't
forward.
remember talking about it, but
We certainly can if you'd like.
we
to
heard a
have it.
lot of stuff. Deborah, I wonder if you might mention the fact that the direct report team had talked with Lori.
Well, half of us did. Veronica and I met with Lori last Monday. Travis and Lee were unable to join us. I mean, we had a very productive meeting, and I sent all of the legislators a lengthy email.
We appreciated that.
I'm sorry?
We appreciated that.
Okay, Nick, you're welcome. So most of the information that Lori shared with Veronica and myself about issues that she's dealing with in finance and, you know, across the board with the departments is in that email. I wanted to commend her and Maury for getting started on, you know, working on a more inclusive process to develop a new revised procurement policy that all of our department heads could feel they contributed to and understand why they want to comply with. So I think that's the most important thing. I think one thing that Lori mentioned to us that most of us hadn't really thought about, and I don't know if it's a BCP problem or a GO problem or a Maury problem, was her concern about potential personal liability for anything that goes wrong with the estates that the surrogate court assigns her to be administrator of. As Lori explained it, and she can probably explain it better than I can, if there are fees associated with that service that she is required by law to provide as the chief financial officer for the county collects those fees. She doesn't, but on the other hand, she is personally the administrator. So potentially, if there's any liability, they could come after her. And she just had questions. I just would like some assurance, which I understand, that any insurance provisions that the county has, self-insurance or otherwise, would apply to any potential liability she might be held to.
Well, while that's a good question, I guess that's one for our county attorney to look at whether she would be indemnified for anything
Right.
that she did there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just as a, I mean, I will double check this, but, as a quick response on that issue, since those duties are carried out as part of the finance director's employment, those should fall within both our indemnification provisions and insurance coverage. Although I would think most liabilities associated with this would come within the self-insured retention. If it was a huge case, it should be covered by that and by the layer of insurance that sits on top of it.
Thank you, Maury. And thank you for working with Lori on the procurement issues. I'm sure she appreciates it, and we do too.
Oh, you're welcome.
Lori, anything else this morning? Other questions for Lori? Shauna, Rich? Thank you for your report. Well, we go to our Human Resources Commissioner, Ruby.
Thank you. Very short report today. I'm grateful to hear that the performance evaluation process is proceeding. Just a reminder that the documentation from the mid-year check-ins are placed in the folders for the designated review panel to review at any time or add to. And those are to be used in the year-end evaluation process. I believe the other mid-year check-ins are being scheduled for January. I'm not sure, but just a reminder that they have to occur at some point mid-year.
Can I?
Go ahead, Deb.
One problem, I guess, that I experienced trying to write up Lori's mid-year is that we're being asked to evaluate our direct reports on criteria that we may or may not have personally experienced as legislators. I see Lori as she interacts with us and people in administration and, Frank Daldo in planning, but I have no way of knowing how she deals within her department. So the mid-year reviews don't include input from the departments, and it makes it really difficult.
Right. Now, we had planned for the year end to have the survey of the peers and the departments. Maybe after this process has taken its full cycle, we may include a mini mid-year survey if that's.
Well, just so that it's not, the mid-year without that input is not reflective of the entire universe of the employee's job.
And those items that you could not evaluate on should be noted so that we can make sure that the year-end survey includes populations that could attest to their performance on those issues.
Yeah.
But going forward, it would be probably a good idea to include a mini survey prior to the mini.
Well, this is year one. We'll get there, but I
Right.
just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, thank you.
And to that point, of course, the review of the administrator will be the kickoff one for the new administrator in January.
Right, and that has already been scheduled. So we'll be prepared for that. And I will be sitting in on the first one as I did with the other direct reports.
Thank you.
Okay. Other than that, HR is in the process of just completing all of our year-end tasks, which includes the year-end resolutions for the changes of positions that have been made during the year. That's one of the resolutions that's on the agenda today. We're preparing our final 2024 submission of titles to the state for the HELP program. That program has been extended to December 2025. So we're continuing to put titles in as much as possible. And renewing our professional services contracts for the maintenance of HR tasks. And that's pretty much it from HR. Oh, I forgot Larry.
Oh, you don't want to
has a
forget
few
Larry.
numbers for you.
Larry Workman.
How can I forget Larry?
All right. Good morning. Real quick, the numbers are, we have 813 county staff, Of course, November was big, so we had 326 election workers and 101 JTPAs, which is the Job Training Partnership Act. Just a real quick snapshot, by the end of November on the 30th, there was 914 people on our rolls. Recruitment, Lisa brought up already the budget director and the communication director, two big searches. Also the deputy commissioner of DSS and deputy facilities director. There were a couple more searches that are still going. Two big ones are the social services attorney and the assistant DA. They have been long going. We're doing a lot of outreach for that. So if anybody out there is listening, please contact me on those roles.
Larry, who's on the interview team for the social services attorney? Is our county attorney part of that?
I'm not sure. Kit is putting that together.
It's always an area that I thought was odd. Who can answer it?
Yeah,
Maury?
I haven't heard anything on that yet.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Maury.
Apologies, Mike. I have not heard anything on that yet
Okay.
from.
It just seems to me that,
From DSS or HR. I'd be happy to participate. I think it makes sense in terms of the language of the charter and such.
I would agree.
Okay. Applications for the month was 302. 11 civil service jobs were posted, or exams, sorry. We had 23 applications for that. We gave 6 tests. 11 people attended those tests. We onboarded 13 county staff and offboarded 3. Leaves, we had 32 disability leaves, 20 cancer screening, 4 bereavement, and 5 COVID for the month of November.
Well, that's pretty thorough. Thank you for that report.
You're welcome.
I've got go ahead, Rich.
Just the number again, 813?
Yes.
So what was the 914?
So the 914 would include
The election workers?
election or JTPAs that are still on.
Okay.
Yep.
I just had a sort of a side question here, Ruby. If a person working in a department wants to transfer to another department, what would be the process of that? Do they have to apply for the new position? Do they have any civil service credits for being in the position they're in? What happens?
They would have to actually apply for that new position. We don't have a simple transfer where you can go from one title to another title. A lot of times we look at the minimum quals and the qualifications and basically suggest this is an area where you can apply, but there's no automatic transfer process. Civil service, you have rights to the title that you have status in. So it can only be that title. Now, if it was an account clerk position, that also there's an account clerk position in another department, then you could go on that list if you had been part of that exam period.
So you say there's no automatic transfer process. Is that something that we could have if we wanted to, or it's not allowed?
It's something that we would have to work out the details as far as the civil service rights to the position and their retention status. When we talk about civil service rights, it goes how long you've been in the position, what your permanent status is, how long you've been past probation. So there are other factors that you have to consider before we say naturally we can do a transfer process. And because there are so many factors with so many different titles, unique titles, and each department in the county is considered its own unit. So if we had a layoff of an account clerk in one department, it does not impact the account clerk in another department because each department is its own unit. So there are a lot of different factors that would make it very difficult to come up with a standardized transfer policy.
But there are bumping rights within the department?
Of course, that's civil service, yes.
Okay.
Bumping and retreating rights.
Oh, dear God.
It's a complicated thing, but that's why when we're looking into reductions in workforce of that nature, it takes HR some time to go through the status of every employee, find out when they were permanent, what their probationary status is, and if they had a position similar to that before or not. So it's a complicated process.
Deborah?
Yeah, I just want to say, we never want to do a reduction in force. I went through that once at the FDIC, in the legal department. Nothing got done in terms of real work for almost a year because everybody just like buzzed around all the time looking at lists for bumping, retreating, and veterans' preferences, and it's horrendous.
Which makes a transfer policy, a standardized transfer policy, somewhat difficult.
Well, you've educated me. Thank you very much. It's not something I knew about the process. I knew we do transfers, but did not know exactly how they occurred.
Can I ask a question as
Sure.
long as we're talking about civil service procedures? So when we want to do a promotion or somebody moves from a position where they have status to another position, do they have to take, I mean, how does that work with civil service? Do they have to take an exam?
There's usually a promotional exam.
Aye.
It depends on if there's a direct line of progression or if it's a totally different position that's at a higher grade. If there's a direct line of progression, they usually have to take the exam and it's restricted to them. If it's a totally different position, the process now is you resign from your position. You have rights a certain time period to come back while you're in probation on another position.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's a process to that too.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering. Thanks for bringing it up, Mike, because I don't
Yeah,
think
well,
most of us
I was
understand
curious
any of
about
this.
it, and that helps me.
Now, we can do a Civil Service 101 for legislators again, if you'd like.
It probably wouldn't hurt
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt.
to have us do that either.
Or wait till 2026 when you've got
Yeah, well,
a completely new crew.
but no, it could be brought first to the committee, and then the committee could decide if it should be brought to the full legislature at some point, maybe early next year sometime.
Okay.
Thank you for the offer. Anything else for our commissioner?
Just following up on your idea, Mike, I found that very helpful, but I'm trying to remember how long it was. I was wondering if it could be done as part of this committee meeting. Is it too long?
The state has actually assisted us in that, and they actually have a guide, Civil Service 101. We've taken that guide and adapted it for use for departments. We can adapt it for legislators.
Yeah.
Thank you. For my report, I wanted to say that our chair, Dan Klein, has told me that we will have a vacancy on the Healthcare Consortium Board with Lisa stepping down, who's been our stalwart member of that. And he's asked me to try to find a legislator who will be willing to do that work. I spoke basically with Lisa about it, and maybe she could mention a little bit about the time commitment and the duties of that position for us.
Sure. So Elin Dowd, who's the executive director of the consortium, reached out and acknowledged that with Tompkins County having been a founding member and a longtime supporter of the consortium, she thought it was important to maintain membership. Lori is on the executive committee and serving as the treasurer, chief financial officer. But a second member on the board and executive committee would be helpful. I've been serving in the role on the executive committee as the vice president. I've not chaired another committee, so therefore my time commitment has been attending once a month the executive committee meetings there from 3:30 to 5 up at the Health Consortium's new headquarters near Community Corners on Upland Road. And the business of the consortium has changed since the membership has grown so prolifically that the main business of the consortium is done via the executive committee, and then they meet as a full board really just once a year in September timeframe to pass the annual budget. But the real work of the consortium happens in those executive committee meetings.
How is the executive committee chosen?
It's typically consists of the chairs of the various operating committees. So there's a budget and finance committee, an operations committee, I'm forgetting. There are a number of standing committees that, and the chairs of those committees comprise the executive committee.
Okay, so who wants to raise his or her hand? And
I'll do it if no one else wants to do it. If someone else,
I will bring it up at legislature
Okay,
when we
someone else
talk on
wants to do it.
Tuesday. But we'll keep you, we'll start a short list. How's that?
Yeah, it
put
should,
me at the very bottom.
it should be somebody who really understands the HHS issues, I think. I know my husband's not on the executive committee, but he is on the consortium board, and it's nice of you to fall on your sword. I've listened to some of those meetings, and it's just mind-boggling. I certainly wouldn't volunteer, because you wouldn't want Ronnie and me both on that meeting.
Oh, Maury's got his hand up. Maury, thank you.
Yeah, I think, unless you specifically want a legislator for that role, I'd be happy to volunteer for it.
I'm still having a little trouble hearing you, Maury.
Better now?
Maybe just me. Go ahead.
He's happy to volunteer.
Oh, you're saying you also, I put you on the short list too.
Yeah, I said it, unless you specifically want a legislator for that role.
Well, that's what Chair Klein said to me, which would be a legislator. But we haven't made any decisions, so I suppose we can talk about it. Rich?
Yeah, I would go with expertise, and having spent several years doing this at the law firm I was at, trying to annually decide what our plan was going to be and dealing with the insurance company. I made the same tired joke every year about it was one of the lesser rings of hell from Dante. It was just this remarkably complicated, annoying thing. And you had to go through it, and it was awful because it was so tedious. But it really matters.
Deborah?
I would agree, actually, with Rich. I think that expertise in areas, understanding the law that applies to insurance and understanding trends in healthcare costs are the two areas where that expertise would be particularly helpful. I'm unsure that you'll find both of those areas of expertise in one person, but one is better than none, and all deference to Chair Klein, I don't think there's anybody on this legislature that has any of that expertise.
Yeah, in my own case, I would mix the metaphor to say I was not only in a ring of hell, but out to sea.
So it was a wet hell. Okay.
Seems like Dante's hell was frozen and not fire.
It depends which circle you're in. The lake of fire, I think, is at the bottom.
Maury, I appreciate that, and I'll be talking with Dan Klein. Oh, that's all I had. I don't see Veronica yet, so we'll catch her. Oh, go ahead.
So I was at the last WDIC meeting. Veronica asked for volunteers from that meeting to give a report to the committee today because she was unable. And I volunteered because I was going to be here anyway. So from the last WDIC meeting, which happened last week, yeah, I think it was, oh no, it happened Monday. We had a Facing Race report, a number of the legislators and staff who attended that event gave an update about it and what they learned and the impact of it. It was quite impactful. That took place in St. Louis. We had updates from the Chief Equity Diversity Officer and Team Jedi. On the conclusion of the Employee Reading and Discussion Program, that went on for over a month. And they had a number of staff who attended. They did surveys of the effectiveness of it, and they're tabulating those responses, and we'll share those out with the committee. There was a review among staff who are part of JEDI, a review of the DEI policy, and they will be bringing that forward again. And from Charlene, reported on her finalizing the institutionalizing equity report, and that has since been shared out with department heads for their review and input and discussion. There was a discussion around membership of WDIC and recruiting new members, particularly staff who are non-management, and also looking for blue-collar staff. And I was asked to send a notice out to county employees for to generate their interest in that. And then there was a discussion around the scope of work for WDIC and just hearing from members as to what they'd like to see in the coming year.
Thank you for that report. Questions? I guess my basic question is, I think we've been committed to DEI here in Tompkins County. It's being attacked nationwide, and certainly some of the Supreme Court decisions have undermined some of the efforts in different states and here. I noticed some of the colleges are starting to drop the use of it. I think University of Michigan, for example, which is not a small college. I guess my question becomes, how do we help the public understand that this isn't some boogeyman, that it's really a good thing, and that it helps us as a community be more open, more understanding, and more collegiality through it. I'm just wondering, how do we make this so it doesn't just go away on us? And you don't have to have an answer to that, but it's, I think, a serious question we have to think about.
I would just comment on it that I know what you mentioned, the rollback of these policies, is certainly something I've been observing and concerned about, and Charlene in her role has as well. It wasn't discussed at the WDIC meeting, that per se, but in terms of keeping the dialogue in the public eye in 2025, as you know, under part of our strategic plan, and also something that has been discussed at WDIC, is wanting to hear from departments their equity goals and indicators for the coming year, what they are doing in these areas to better serve the public. Or to better run their department. And as part of this upcoming institutionalizing equity plan and report, each department is choosing one or two equity indicators to include in their goals for 2025, and those will be discussed and reported out in WDIC.
Could you share a couple of examples of what those equity indicators look like?
Sure. I think, and for instance, we had a discussion about it. I think it's okay to say at the department head meeting yesterday, probation is concerned about some of their outcomes for individuals that are on probation, and what those, how those trends have been looking in the recent years. And they want to address that head on to see how they can improve outcomes, particularly outcomes for communities of color. So that's one of several. That's a rather complex one. But that's an example.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions about go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, there was actually an article in the Ithaca Times, I think it was yesterday or today, that talked about the city of Ithaca and their climate goals and how they're kind of shifting those a little bit to incorporate really targeting communities that are traditionally underserved, and really focusing our their climate efforts on these communities, which I think has been interesting because they had the Green New Deal that rolled out that was going to cost a lot of money, that was going to be pretty intensive, and I think that they have not necessarily moved forward in that because it requires money. And so they came out with a new, I guess, like a new idea of how they were going to move forward with that. And it seems like a totally different plan than they might have had before. But I think they're focusing more of their efforts on serving our underserved populations here in the city. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But it was actually, I thought, refreshing to see that they're coming at it with a new lens. Mm-hmm. So.
Thank you for that. Okay, can we move on? Looks like we got one or two resolutions we better get through here. Let's start with resolution authorizing 2020-25 payments for Tompkins Cortland Community College operating budget. Deborah moves it, seconded by Shauna. Discussion about that. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Resolution to update the administrative policy manual, policy 02-47, lactation accommodations. Someone want to move that one? Rich? Seconded by Shauna. Discussion. This we had a review of, and certainly in government operations, and it brings us in line with the state changes in the state policy on that.
Okay, good to know.
Ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Budget adjustment, Highway Department, return excess first instance county funding to defund balance. Rich moves it. Deborah seconds it. You want to mention anything about it, Lisa?
I see Kevin McGuire is on from the Highway Department.
Oh, I didn't see Kevin.
Oh, good,
Morning,
Kevin.
Hi,
Kevin.
You want to say something to us about this?
This is, good morning, all. Thank
Can't
you
hear
for
you.
the opportunity to field a question or two. This is an interesting one. It reflects a case where for a past, are you having trouble hearing me?
Yes.
A little bit.
You're kind of muffled.
Let me see if I can talk into
That's
my
much
mic here.
better.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. We had a capital project a while back, and this was related to Station Road and some stream work on that. And we got a DEC grant for it, but it required that the county provide local funding up front until the DEC provided reimbursement for 50% of the project. So we put in 100% of the money. We've finished the project. The DEC 50% has come in. And now it's time to return the 50% that we had put in place of the eventual reimbursement. Return that back to the defund fund balance from where it was effectively borrowed to be the front money to make the project work. And Daryl in the finance department helped me get the account numbers right. Some of those for dealing with fund balances are a little off the beaten track, but he provided those, and I did my best to capture what was needed in the resolution. I'm happy to field any other questions, but I think that's the basic outline of it.
So basically, refunding this money to the account that had loaned it out.
Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Ready to, are there other questions or ready to vote?
I just want to say it's nice to see Kevin.
Always nice to see Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, let's vote. All those in favor? No opposed, so that's unanimous. Now we go to request to amend the Tompkins County Opioid Settlement Fund contract, OSFC, Finger Lakes Reuse Incorporated. Who wants to explain this one? Shauna?
So this was an agency that was awarded through the opioid settlement funds through the task force. And essentially they had started the program and they had to revamp their request because it was not allocated correctly, and they realized that they needed to add some different management. Yeah, essentially. So this is just their appeal to do that, and we did approve that in Health and Human Services Committee, and we did have myself, Randy, and Travis were part of that task force, and we thought it was a good idea.
Thanks. Other questions Shauna can answer, perhaps? Ready to vote? Mm-hmm. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. The next one, we have the revised version, changes in positions, various departments. Someone want to move that one? And then someone, Deborah's moving it, Shauna's seconded it. Who wants to explain to us the changes here?
Basically, this is our year-end resolution. It's a process that the county has where we can basically reconcile all those positions that are on the position report with the budgeted positions. During the course of the year, there may be changes in positions through our position conversion process that don't necessarily have to come to the legislature for individual approval. For instance, if you have an information aid title and you want it to be an admin assistant title, same number of hours, there's a process where you can change that title, but it has to be in the budgeted authorizations as well. So this is a process where any new positions that have been created through the budgeting process, any positions that have had decreases or increases in the number of hours throughout the year comes to this year-end process where it's all authorized and budgeted.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Lisa had to do it last year.
Any questions about this for Ruby? Can we vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, we're up to F. Resolution, town and city budgets and printing of tax rates. Who wants to move that one? Rich? Seconded by Deborah. We certainly want the tax bills to go out,
Yes, we do.
like it or not. Questions on that? All in favor? Those opposed? That's unanimous. G is approving completed tax rolls and directing the executing and delivery of the warrants. Rich moves it. Deborah seconds it. The warrants is our demand that we be paid. Ready to vote? Oh, go ahead, Deb.
So these are the warrants we issued to whom?
Oh, they go to the town clerks and the city
All
clerk.
right, I want to be sure. I forgot from last year.
Those in favor? Any opposed? Authorization for the Tompkins County Department of Human Resources to enter into a multi-year agreement with the Triad Group LLC for workers' compensation claims administration. Ruby, or someone, Rich moves it, Deborah seconds it. Ruby, do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. Basically, this is a renewal of a professional services contract that we have with a third-party administrator for our workers' comp claims. They handle the claims, any protesting of, and make sure bills are paid for our workers' comp program. It's a 3-year agreement, so we had to come back for resolution.
Rich?
It all makes sense to me, except there's an exception for 207C. How are those managed and why are they kept separate?
Well, the fees are separate. The same administrator handles them, but the fees are separate because it goes through a totally separate process. Workers' comp has its own workers' comp board. 207C goes through PERB and labor, basically, relations.
Deborah?
So they're two separate contracts?
No, it's the same contracts, but there's an additional fee if we go through the 207C process.
Okay.
So, this is a flat fee that's in the actual contract, but then there's another fund takes care of the 207C funds, fees.
Okay, and was this a competitively bid contract?
Yes.
Right.
We did get other quotes.
Okay, thank you.
Rich?
And just for clarity, 207C is when an employee gets injured but not on the job. They have disability.
No, it is on the job. It's just restricted to public safety. It's
Okay,
our law
that-
enforcement.
So, but I thought there was a distinction between injured in the course of the work and then disabled outside but couldn't work. No?
One goes through workers' comp, and the other one's, Maury, correct me if I'm wrong, 207Cs, it's injured on duty, but it goes through the 207C process. Some of them actually, go ahead, Maury.
Yeah, 207C and workers' comp, they overlap to a degree, but 207C is a more generous program for public safety. 207C applies to law enforcement, and it is for injuries that occur in the course of performing law enforcement duties,
Okay.
whereas workers' comp would apply generally to any injury that happens at work. If an injury happens off work, then it's not covered by either workers' comp or 207C.
So why is there a different pathway for 207C? Why doesn't this contract cover workers' comp and 207C?
State law.
But I mean, we're contracting for claims administration. It seems odd to me that we have a carve
The
out.
same third-party administrator handles both.
Right.
But if there is a hearing that we have to go through for 207C, the fees come out of a different pot.
They generally are more expensive to manage? I
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's a larger benefit in terms of replacement of income. 207C replaces 100% of the officer's income without taxes withheld if the benefit applies, and if there's a dispute over the benefit, rather than going before the Workers' Compensation Board, it would be handled much more like a labor arbitration.
Without taxes withheld.
Without taxes with.
Yes.
So there's an incentive actually built in there to go on 207C rather than.
And stay on it.
Forever.
Which is why we contract out with a third-party administrator to go through all of the processes and the investigations as necessary. It's really a safeguard for the county, rather than just automatically applying 207C. Then we actually have a third-party administrator to go through the claims, to go through the medical documentation, to get all the information necessary to make the decisions.
Thanks for that explanation, because I knew it was law enforcement, and I thought it was a distinction on in and out of work injury, but
all work enters.
This seems like, from a New York State policy standpoint, not a very smart thing to do.
You think?
Yeah.
It depends on whose ox is being bored. I mean,
Right. Well, that's it. I guess, you know, you have special risks as a law enforcement officer, so there's that. But you don't want to ever encourage somebody to not
Come back to work?
come back to work.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I would just point out that when I first read Triad, this is the Triad group, it's not the Triad Foundation.
Yeah, I was a little confused initially, too.
Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Budget Adjustment, Highway Department, American Rescue Plan Act, funding for highway machinery. I think this is similar to the one we had before. Someone want to move it? Shauna, seconded by Deborah. Kevin, you want to mention this one?
Samantha in county administration has a better handle on ARPA more broadly, but I think I can speak to this one. I can't remember which budget, but there was an OTR that allocated ARPA funding to, and I see Norma, so she may be able to comment as well, but allocated ARPA funding for the purchase of a snow and ice plow truck. And those come as, first you buy a cab and chassis, and then you also, from the same vendor, you purchase what's called an upfit, all the stuff that allows the plow, blades, and all of that stuff to attach to the truck. And those, they job out to another party. But we got a package deal by piggybacking on another county's contract. We also have a similar truck that we're planning to purchase through the capital machinery project. But because of supply chain issues related to COVID and the backup of certain aspects of that, the trucks are available now, but the upfits aren't. So what we'd like to do, and what this resolution aims to do, is to move money so that we can buy the trucks because they're available for delivery now. And we need to move the money out of what are called R accounts, which indicates a past year's encumbrance, and move them into a current year account so we can buy 2 trucks. And then we will pay for the 2 upfits, perhaps as late as next summer when they're finally available, but we'll do that out of the capital and machinery budget instead. So it's a bit of a shuffle of the groupings of expenditures, and that requires pulling the money out of those past year accounts where they carried encumbrances and move it into a current year account. I think I've done that some justice. If Norma here's gone off the rails, I hope she'll chime in.
Well, you're a little muffled,
No,
but
that sounded right.
I think we got the gist of it. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's Norma that spoke to us just now. All right, questions about this one? Ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? I do think that went through F&I as well. All right.
My impression is it's going on Monday.
On Monday?
To F&I.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
both of these
where I
are
read
coming
it.
a little bit out of order, coming to you first and then F&I on Monday.
Well, at least this way you know you got the money.
Right, yeah, we're trying to get this done before year end.
All right, let's
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's go to Resolution J, creation of positions, Family-Centered Case Management Services. This is Department of Social Services. Who's going to talk to us about this one? Shauna?
I'll move it. I don't
And I'll
think I-
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you moved it and Deborah seconded it. All right, who's going to talk to us about this one?
Well,
Lisa?
sure. What I can say about it is that it is based on a grant that is coming from OTDA, from the New York State Office of Temporary Disability and Assistance, and it enables the hiring of these two positions. No county funds are required for those positions.
Deborah?
So I understand that for the foreseeable future, I guess, these positions will be paid for from that grant. But my question is, are these positions going to be added in Target? And if so, what happens when the grant funds evaporate?
So typically, if and when positions are hired as a result of a grant and that grant is taken away, that becomes a decision point in the department whether or not to come forward to preserve the positions. Usually the positions would go away when the grant funds go away.
So they're not added to Target, they're like multi-year OTRs?
No, this would be added to the department's target. There would be, with the grant, their budget would be adjusted to incorporate those grant funds.
So we need to keep an eye on positions like this in case the grant funding goes away, and then it's on us. How will we be alerted to that?
Well, typically, we track that in county admin and through the budget process. In a department as large as the Department of Social Services, if the grant funds go away and there are other titles in that department that someone can move into that are funded elsewhere, then that would be probably what they would do. So an employee would not lose their position, but the grant funds would be reduced and we would not be carrying those positions locally.
And that would show up in the budget book?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Shauna?
So just to confirm, the positions are from July 1st through June 30th. So we would put out a listing prior to July 1st. It would note that it was a one-year contract. Is that right? For the two positions?
Doesn't sound like it.
I would need to confer more with Kit about this and about the likelihood of how long the grant is expected. I mean, some of the state funds will be, more or less permanent funding, so to speak, and others are designed to be like a 1 or 2 year pilot. And if it's the latter, then people who are applying for the funds are notified that this is a temporary. It's grant funded and likely to be short term.
Okay. I mean, I would just be concerned because I can imagine someone that's looking for a job right now, the market's really tight, and I'm not sure there are many people that would want to sign on for a 1 year position.
Deborah?
Yeah, I don't want to oppose this, but I don't want it to go on the consent agenda because I think that we should, before the legislature votes on this, we should get clarification as to exactly how these positions are going to be listed and what the potential long-term impact on the county's target is and how that'll be handled. Is that fair?
That's fine. We'll ask that it not go on consent.
Okay.
Shauna?
These are also on our agenda this afternoon for Health and Human Services, and Kit will be here. So
Okay.
we can ask her those
All right.
questions as well.
Thanks.
I just want to point out, I'm looking at the legislature agenda, and they are not on the consent agenda.
Are
Okay.
they on this agenda?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Thanks, Brittany.
You're welcome.
All right, are we ready to vote? Those in favor? That's unanimous. And the last one is Budget adjustment, Department of Social Services, Family-Centered Case Management Services, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, grant acceptance and authorization to hire appropriate staff. We want to move that one. Deb moves that one, and Rich seconds. I would say this is similar.
Well, I think this is just the funding for the thing we just passed, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? Well, that's the end of our written agenda. Anything else that folks would like to bring up today?
It's a record.
Well, this is the way budget meetings used to go. You should have, when Jim Dennis chaired budget, he would zip right through these in about 5 minutes before the special meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, since we have an extra hour. Now, Deborah,
Maybe you do.
I'm glad you mentioned your email regarding your and Veronica's visit with Lori, because I did have a question about that. And I went back and opened it up, and there was discussion of some software that is not really going to help us very much because it's really old. And I was curious, what comes next for that? Are we thinking we want to take some money from contingency? Because that's what we talked about doing, is we want to give you the tools. Is there software selected that could do this better?
So I think you're talking about for the POs and recs?
Yes.
Part of
Yes.
software. So
Yes.
our software currently has the capability to do that. We need to research how to get it up and running and training and rolling that out.
Okay.
We will be, I guess you say, required or be looking to upgrade that software probably next year into doing an RFP 25 for 26. So that's when we'll be asking for that money to upgrade the entire software, not just the PO and requisition piece of it.
Okay. If you're going to do training on it, does it make sense to update the software and then train on the new system, or train and then update?
So the update would be the entire ERP system, which would be a 2 or 3 year process to get that all rolled up, set up. So
Okay.
we need to, I'd like to start working with the system we have
Okay.
in the meantime.
All right.
Well, that would get people used to the process of,
Right.
requisitions.
And then are there resources to enable you to do that? To do sort of the reinvigoration of the software, the training, the rollout?
So.
Have that,
Well, so as part of the budget process, we requested 2 additional positions. So
those people will be able to help you do this?
if we can get them filled. So we got to post
Okay.
them here coming up
All right.
in January and get them filled and trained, and yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, they're at the end of the table. Okay. They're going to solve your problems.
We don't want to forget about space too, because
Yeah.
we don't want to have them working out of their cars.
If necessary.
We might not have parking. All
Thanks,
right.
Lori.
Anything
And
else?
Deborah.
I just want to say thanks for everybody for a great year with this committee, and certainly folks that have helped us. Brittany, you've done a great job for us, and Lisa, and Larry, and Ruby, and Lori. Thanks, Maury, for being up there, and I see Samantha and Norma have been with us through the meeting, and I thank you for that. Somebody, who else is we missing?
Oh, Kevin left.
Kevin left. Kevin came, and that helped us. Been a great committee, and I want to thank you all. Have a happy holiday season.
Thank you,
You too,
too, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.